We're gonna go live now, like onto the Facebook, but you know, it's informal, so you can feel free to chit chat.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I want it to feel like not so like we're gonna be in this really formal panel, you know? So yeah,
Cool.
feel free to talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thinking about like, you know, coming from Rome and then go up to Artenna, going there and thinking about urban landscape, right? And the idea that old little town. So how urban is that? How much rural is that? I think that's also a very interesting thought process, right?
I'm gonna let people in now, okay?
Yeah. So I'm really curious to learn more about your work. I mean, I was excited when I saw that you actually know them and you were there. So
yeah.
yes, that I saw your work in the magazine, but I didn't link it first. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. I feel like I'm gonna learn a lot from you because I have no idea what a lot of like the plants that surround me are.
Oh, you will need one. It's already here. Urban Marshinaira, so which I'm probably now watering a little soon.
Are you still in the same place in Brooklyn?
Yeah, I'm in Williamsburg. Yeah.
Okay.
On Napa Hokeland.
Yes, same here.
Okay. So we're just gonna let some people in. People can feel free to like, you know, chat still. And so we're just gonna wait like another minute or so just in case. But then let me see. I think yeah, I think we're good otherwise.
Yeah, I think I need to be also start.
Okay. Let's give an extra minute because it's Zoom.
Colleen, hey.
How's it going? It's good to see you.
Good. It's been a minute since I've seen your face.
I know. Oh, there we go.
You're not in the office today.
I moved my desk around.
Nice.
I'm trying to find light.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, and some life, some plant life.
Yeah.
Great. So we might just start now if that's good. Welcome everyone. So I want you to all feel that this is actually quite an informal kind of discussion. So you know, when we go into our breakouts, you know, hopefully we'll be able to get to know each other a little bit more. But in the beginning, we're going to be actually streaming on Facebook, just to let you know that. And also that we're recording this. So, and I'm recording that to really share to the artist. So I'm not gonna do anything with the recording, but the streaming recording will be on Facebook. But we're gonna stop it at the breakout session so we can talk very freely and nothing's being recorded at all. So, so just to let you know that, but welcome to the first EcoArt Salon of 2021. Very excited to have Andrea Haenggi and Cesar Melgar with us, and really grateful that they'll be on Zoom with us. And I wanted to thank the Rutgers University Newark Paul Robeson Gallery for hosting us always, and also the generous support of the Clement A. Price Institute for Ethnicity, Culture, and the Modern Experience. And I also wanted to thank our newly formed EcoArt Committee with Rutgers MA candidates Colleen O'Neill and also Crystal Robinson, who are very involved in organizing and curating the series now. So welcome, and thank you so much for all your work. And I wanted to mention that these are, you know, really meant to kind of build a community. So we do this every month, and it's, you know, as I was saying, informal, it's a dialogue, and we really want to talk about the issues that the artists are working on, but also allow them to talk about their process and any, you know, issues you might have in terms of, you know, your work that you might want to bring up, mostly for the breakouts, you know, as I was talking to Andrea before, it's just like really thinking through, you know, you might have work in process or something like that. So it's meant to be a space that is less like a panel and more, you know, building a conversation that is a real true dialogue and in relationships. And so hopefully I see more of you next week as well, but I do see certain people that have been coming back each month, which is nice. And Okay, so today we're exploring the idea of nature and the urban landscape with Andrea Haenggi and Cesar Melgar. And normally, folks might think about the concept of nature and landscape and the environment framed through how we're taking things in through our popular culture, through narratives that have us think about it in a very certain way, like a certain framework. We might be thinking about like trees or like a park that's somewhere else. So it's always like somewhere else for the urban dweller. And so these artists ask us to rethink that. And so today I'm excited to kind of go through their lens and be able to really rethink what our urban environment is, right? And so we're going to start with Cesar, and then we're going to engage with Andrea after. And so I'm just going to read the short bio for Cesar before you begin, if that's good. So Cesar was born in Newark, New Jersey, and raised in the Ironbound section, a working class neighborhood. This upbringing as a child of first-generation immigrants from Colombia and Peru influences his eye as he turns his lens onto his community that has faced environmental injustice, divestment, and now the force of gentrification. His photos capture the poetic nuances of daily life in a city that is often misunderstood by New Jersey's suburbs and beyond, and especially the media. So welcome, Cesar. Did you want to share a PowerPoint presently, or?
I do, and thank you for having me. I will go and share that right now.
Okay, great.
I hope everybody's doing good and everybody's safe during these crazy times. Okay. So basically, like, the story that I want to tell is the story of the city that I grew up in, Newark, New Jersey. And it's where I live is a very important place, I think, because this is like the ground zero of where gentrification in the city is currently like where it started and where it's rapidly changing the landscape of where I grew up in. So the neighborhood that I grew up in, it used to be very vibrant. Like we had everything that we needed, basically. We had like this little strip mall where you could buy fish, like there was a fish market there, supermarket, you could buy furniture. And all of that one day was just knocked down. Like little by little, like the houses where my neighbors grew up in and neighbors that I knew, like they were being emptied out and eventually leveled out. So this is like one of my friends' houses. And it's just like, it was just wild to see it just being dismantled the way it was, you know? And here is a one of my neighbors who actually is a photographer. I didn't even know that to actually was exploring his house like after he was gone and it was halfway knocked down, and I saw like a dark room in the basement. And it's just like just to see this happen is just wild to me. And for many, many years, this is what my neighborhood looked like. It's just nothing but parking lots. And already, like we were already lacking green space. Like Newark is a city where it has less green space per capita than most major cities. And like here used to be houses, and for a while, like we were, like when it was empty and it was just like gutted buildings, like my friends and I actually squatted for like a couple of years in these places because like I had friends who were going through some problems. So like we all kind of banded together and we took care of each other. Like we would go like to some of the other empty houses and like take furniture, like, and we fully furnished the place that we lived in. And like we had friends that were transient, like they didn't have anywhere to go. So we would take care of each other. But eventually like all that disappeared too. Like the place that we were staying at, it caught on fire. It was like a big fire. We lost everything. But this to me is like my neighborhood now. One thing that this city loves to do is to just tear things down and turn everything into a parking lot. Like we seriously worship the car. And in many ways, like the neighborhood where I live in is right next to Penn Station, which is a major transit hub. So a lot of the lots that are around me, they're just parking lots for people to catch the train to go to New York, to go to work. And now that we're in the pandemic, like people are actually repurposing these parking lots because they're empty now. Like there's nothing going on. And in the background right here is a Prudential Arena. So that's been closed for like the past year because of the pandemic. So it's interesting to see how people are using the space to exercise, to take their kids out, to take their dogs out for a walk. And in the Ironbound, a lot of the buildings here have been torn down also, like a lot of the old factories were sitting here empty for a while because, you know, we're in a de-industrialized city now. So a lot of these factories just sat there vacant for a very long time. And that was like my childhood, you know, like me and my friends would just go into these buildings, explore them. And it was like a playground because we kind of really don't have a playground in many ways, you know? So these buildings were in many ways how we had fun. So this right here is an Ironbound, a little bit close to me. And this factory got knocked down. And it's interesting, it was just fascinating to see that this neighbor's entire like side of his house was exposed to the elements. So this right now is in the process of being converted. This lot right here is in the process of being built on, and it'll most likely be a luxury apartment building. This image, I made this during the pandemic. This was last year. And this is a prime example of the people using the space for their own, they give it a new meaning. So this is another boring parking lot. Like we just have so many parking lots and not enough green space, not enough parks. So this is the best that our neighbors can do at the moment to have fun, you know, to have recreation. One of my favorite places to go in Newark is this empty lot that is off of Wilson Avenue, which is the main artery in the Ironbound. And I would love to come here. This was like kind of like my park. And I would bring friends here too. Like we would come here to relax, you know, drink beers. We would ride our bikes around here. And to me, like this is like my forest. This was like our place to escape. This is our other. Since we don't have that many parks, and you know, we're a little far away from, you know, actual forests and big green spaces. And I don't drive right now. So this is the best place that we would go. And it was enjoyable. Like it was very tranquil, very peaceful. You know, you would hear, the most that you would hear are cars whizzing by on the nearby highway. And actually we would hang out with deer too. Like that's wild. Like there were deer like running around. They were very shy. They were probably not used to seeing people. But this also used to be a big factory. These are remnants of that same factory. And it's wild. This is another space that people were repurposing for their own use. Like I would come here and people would be having barbecues. They'd be playing volleyball. And it was mostly like the Latinx diaspora, people who came here from, you know, South America, Central America. They're really like the ones, in my own opinion, and from what I've seen, they're really the ones that take advantage of these spaces where other people just kind of, they drive past them or they walk past them and don't really think about it. And it's also a space where people would come paint graffiti and do other things. So this right here is an example of that. Here, I don't know if you can see the woman here. She's carrying some stuff. But yeah, people, it was like a little snapshot in time because this does not exist anymore. Like this was all like you know, paved over and he started to build on it. And right now it's actually a logistics warehouse. So I'm gonna come back here and just remake photos of the same place. But during this period of change, it's interesting to see what this space could have been before it became a warehouse. So this was after um, like they started cleaning the place up and removing like the old remnants of the factory. And to me, like this looks like a sort of like an alien invasion almost, like a new colony being set up. Here's a perfect example of like the things that the city does. And my friend Cynthia May Young, she talks about businesses as being neighbors, right? And these industries as being neighbors. So I don't think that these are being very good neighbors to the people that live around the area, you know? This is just a huge, huge parking lot now. I don't know what was here before, but to see this big blacktop of nothingness just being used to store cars, you know that it's only one person, a few people making profit off of this, and people are lacking in places to have actual recreation. Here's the funnier use of an empty lot. So the city of Newark last year, along with all the protests that were going on and the tearing down of monuments, they tore down the statue of Christopher Columbus. And I have no idea how this happened, but this statue ended up in an empty lot in North Newark, like in the middle of the hood, right next to the highway. And apparently, I guess it was completely covered over, but there were like some pretty big storms that happened before this. And I guess the tarp sort of revealed him. And like the Italian community, they were flipping out. They were like angry, like, and before they moved this out of the lot, like I came here to make this image. I just think it's a pretty funny ending for this guy, Christopher Columbus. This is also a moment stuck between development and what was before. So this is going to become a park right now because we live next to the Passaic River, which is a river that was like dumped on for like during World War II, like people were dumping dioxide in here. This company, Diamond Alkali, they were dumping dioxide, which was like a byproduct of Agent Orange. So we live in near a very, very polluted river. And like our river was just forgotten about. It was never thought of as a place where people can come to relax and to take in the view. You can't fish in the waters because the fish is cancerous. But the homeless population, they were using this area as a place to live. It is not there anymore either. Like a lot of these things aren't here anymore. So I just feel like it's very important for me, like as an artist. That's why I wanted to stay here in Newark and to just record these things, because I think they're very important to us. And I think that they help inform. We're a deindustrialized city. So a lot of our factories, they're just sitting still, they're empty. A lot of them are going to be repurposed for other uses. And I just find it's very, very tranquil to explore these buildings. This little window right here is very interesting because when you look out that window, it looks straight into the main skyscrapers of the downtown skyline. So this building right now, it's in the process of also being renovated. I don't know what it's going to be, but again, most likely luxury housing. So these are high rises, luxury high rises that are popping up in my own neighborhood. I live down the street from here, like a block away. And this building right here is, I think this particular unit that you see is going to be charging like $2,900 a month, which is very, very high for a city that has so many people living in poverty. I just feel like this type of construction is not really going to help the people in the long run. Like when people talk about revitalizing the city, I kind of don't understand what that means, because to me, like revitalizing buildings and like building in this type of manner is not revitalization at all, because the most vulnerable right now are suffering. Like a lot of the units, a lot of the like the multifamily houses in the Ironbound, like you literally have like a handful of people living in every unit, like living in rooms, living in horrible conditions. And these are the people that the media has been calling essential workers, but they're essential, but yet we're not doing much to protect our most vulnerable at all. And also, they say that building luxury housing helps offset rents from going up, but I don't see that happening at all. Like I walk around my neighborhood and I see rents going up. My rent went up, and I see like apartments that are being rented out for $2,000 and higher. So I don't understand this concept of rent of these buildings, offsetting rent increases. I don't see that at all, personally. So this is on the street opposite of mine, Walnut Street, and one of my latest projects that I've been working on. Well, I've been doing this for years now, but I've been shooting these. I've been capturing these banners right here, which these banners represent an upcoming development. So I'm gonna interview these people, the people that live here, but it must be traumatic to be living in a building and then you see the sign pop up, and they're Latinx and they work construction, like, because I see their work vans and everything, and it must be. I want to speak to them, but it must be very traumatizing and scary to know that eventually you're gonna have to leave and find somewhere else to live. And the way the city is changing, where in Newark are you going to be able to really live and be able to live affordably and be able to live in a safe space that already is lacking in green space, that is already lacking in infrastructure? Like, we have so much traffic, we have traffic problems, like the neighborhoods flood when it rains. Like, I don't think that this is the right approach to making Newark a better city. I don't believe luxury buildings is what makes a city special at all. And that is it for my presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Cesar. And I think something really special, like being able to see those really intimate images of Newark, but also to hear your narrating over it as somebody that lives in Newark was really special to be able to hear. So hopefully we can talk more about that in our breakout sessions as well. So I'm going to jump in and introduce Andrea now. Thank you, Cesar. And but hopefully we'll be able to talk more afterwards. So Andrea is of Swiss Alpine descent and is breathing and working on occupied Lenape and Connersey lands, currently known as Brooklyn in New York City. She's calling on plants as guides, teachers, and mentors and performers. Her dance and somatic eco-social art fieldwork practice creates a form of theater called ethnochoreobotany, which simultaneously explores issues regarding decolonization, ecology, feminism, power, labor, and care. Her work expands beyond the confines of a theater and gallery to connect us to our urban land, and she's performed and exhibited internationally and locally as an embodied scientist at the Botanical Garden of the University of Zurich in Switzerland, at Wave Hill in the Bronx, and she holds an MFA in creative practice from Transart Institute, Plymouth University, UK, and is a Swiss Canton Southern Dance Prize recipient. And she also is seeking to expand her practice since 2017 with her spontaneous urban plants, also known as weeds, and she co-founded the artist activist collective Environmental Performance Agency, EPA, whose primary goal is to shift thinking around the terms environment, performance, and agency. So welcome, Andrea.
Hello. Well, first I want to really thank so much, Alex, to bring us there. But going back really to Cesar, to give me really insight into your world. And it really reminds me, actually very painfully, how Williamsburg was 20 years ago when I came here, and how everything got taken away, and it's all these luxury livings. Mm-hmm. And with that, I just want, my presentation is actually will be in a very intimate place in a certain way, and maybe answers or can look something of what you said. You said one thing, what the space could have been. Mm-hmm. And so what is all the places, what is in these spaces? And that's something I will share this year, that I watered in the beginning. Some of you that came, that's Masha Naira, so we're not alone, is with us. I watered it before. That came actually from a site that I will introduce you, that come exactly from a site that you talked about that got left alone, but then also got ripped around it. And I will more talk about that. But to share with you guys, really, I would like to, today, I will share with you all in your own space, but we all in the same time together, some somatic movement practice during the pandemic time last year. How the relation to the New York City urban landscape actually changed for me, and probably also for a lot of people, where it took me that I did not expect it ahead. Knowing I'm in an ephemeral art form that is about being with audience, being seen, and share and build multi-species communities in these shared moments. Sending thanks out to my sister femmes for their thoughts and sharing in the last year, and all the urban masters and their beings for their wisdom, teaching, and offering relations. So I really share the process, how I work through with urban mass. With that, I invite you actually to do the first thing, participate together with me, which I do a lot of times before I start actually going into the landscape or in the studio work. I do one exercise to really think about what is a plant language. So if anybody wants to show their face at this moment, that would make a nice sharing. That would be wonderful. And just, it's a hand dance. Really think about touch and movement as the source of language. So think about, take one hand, and we have 27 bones in this hand. And then take the other hand. And feel like this hand here, one hand is more stable and the other's just rubbing on it. Just try that out. Listen to the sound. And then reverse. Make this other hand a little more stable with the 27 bones that you have, and rub the other side. And then just switch back and forth until you don't know anymore which one is the stable hand and which not. And notice what's happening, even speeding it up. Listen to the sound. What happens when you're speeding it up? You maybe create some heat, right? It's getting maybe more hot. And then I invite you to open up your palm. And you will take the palm in front of your eyes in the eye socket, but keep your eyes open. So put that into your eye socket and keep your eyes open. Notice what sources you maybe take in. Heat, moist, maybe even some light. Maybe that's how a plant thinking, being in the darkness. It will take a few silence to sense what offerings else comes in and what happens. As you keep your eyes open in this darkness, slowly let your palms move away from your face, but really slowly. Notice the energy, heat, change, and light, and come back to each other in space. Notice in this process, what other languages you gained, what other knowledge. Could that be somewhere where plants are living or being? And with that, I share you now, I also have a PowerPoint. And here I'm starting, I call it multi-pandemic times, and really it started in March when I came in and I let it just run. So this is me at home. I actually here watered moths that they were disturbed outside. I took them in before in February for a dance piece that we should have performed somewhere, which obviously didn't happen. So when it hit, and actually here I'm the night before I could barely breathe, had to call the hospital, decided not to go because of I had COVID. I have COVID here. And so what was, I didn't smell moss. And I'm like, what happened? I don't smell the earth. Obviously, later on in the month, I learned that's what COVID does. Thinking back where it came from, in here, this is actually on the sand. That reminds me on New Cesar, right? It's out on the right by the Williamsburg Bridge. There is only one small alley. Nobody catched yet. The real estate didn't catch that alley yet. But somebody else catch that alley. There is always spontaneous urban wildlands coming up, and the city comes and rips them out. With that, they're ripping as well out a lot of the mosses. So the mosses get actually displaced. So in February, I'm actually went in there to learn about them.
Mosses leaves are a single cell thick. Like the delicate tissue of your lungs. They are in direct contact with the atmosphere. I smell pollution.
And then here, when I'm from there, I found the Genera, which is with me still here. This is Genera, and printed in the studio because it was just flipped out, displaced between the cobblestone. And so I wanted more bringing in the studio, what means that relationship? So I'm just sharing there again.
This is Genera, an urban moss. The skin now is the substrate. The meeting ground between air and land is known as the boundary layer. The space where earth and atmosphere first make contact.
So being, having COVID, knowing I wasn't 100% sure because at that time you didn't have a test, but I didn't want to see anybody, would get early up and only stay in my block and was wondering what kind of urban mosses are there. I had a hard time to breathe. So moving was out of the picture. So I took drawing with me. So here you see a little moss right here in it. And I just went closer to it and see everything that happens there and recording that. And here you see many little spaces right on my block. You see where they are home. So it takes really time, and it's nice to see really the 6 foot distance you have to take to see them even. And as you see how small it is, right? And obviously I'll start to learn my lesson. They come and speak in color when they're after the rain. And so but I got so sensitized on my block from March and April, just being on that block. But I didn't do this alone. I actually, at that time, I asked already with Simone, which is up here, Dot down here, and then I invited Ellie and Nora, can we gather together? I called it Moss in Pandemic Times, Somatic Zoom gathering, and that each in our neighborhood looks at their moss, shares it, and we also did Robert Wall Kimber's book, reading chapters. But the idea was that each time we're meeting for an hour weekly, what it would mean that moss guiding us in this process, these urban mosses. And I just show you, it's 3 minutes long, but I think it's so beautiful here how we talk to each other. And I took a little excerpt out of it so that you understand.
Notice where is your light, maybe your head just reaching back there. There is light, and then back into more shade. Is this dialogue between light and shade? At this point, I was like, what is my affinity? Or do I need to have an affinity? Or do you have more than one affinity? Someone knows.
I have an affinity toward the sun.
Right.
You mean like affinity toward yourself, or what you have affinity for?
Well, it said in the chapter affinity with water. That was for Mars. So I was really thinking with who I have affinity with who I am. It's my companionship that I kind of have a dialogue always.
Yeah.
Not a snack.
And then, of course, I was thinking, like, wow, there's so many other things living within the moss that we maybe can't even see. There's such a density to it. And that feels like a reflection of an urban environment, too. So much going on that we don't see.
But like the idea of like the sign or like the meaning of the moss, right? Like what is the moss? Is like how does it signify its mossness? You know, and that's like a question. She's kind of like, what, you know, what is the moss telling us? Like what is the sign of the moss?
And it's just, and then you go on Google Drive and it's just a whole world of mosses. And if I wasn't doing this, I think I would walk past that lawyer's lawn and not see the whole entire front yard. That's a moss yard.
Mosses, right? Like, because we see each other's patterns, the things that we see. And then it helps me like see the version of moss that Simone saw, because it might be a white wool too, but I couldn't recognize it otherwise.
When the moss rains, and you talked about that, and that's when the moss becomes like moves.
I was thinking justice, right? You have justice for human beings, right? But if you say justice for the water, right? Or justice for the tree, what would mean justice for the moss? So I was just wondering in our 7 times when we felt like other agency came in, and when it was like, oh, it's the human agency. No, there was another agency that drove that action or the gesture.
Yeah. It seems like when we are remembering our encounters with moss, it's as if we're trying to speak their language, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit. And I was thinking while you were speaking, Andrea, about like how would we write a law of justice for moss if moss doesn't write?
So this actually then came that we did at a moss summer camp. We actually wrote scores together that then people could participate. And this was then became part of the collective I am in, the Environmental Performance Agency. It became then part of the summer scores and the summer camp. And then, and you still can do it. I know summer is over, but summer comes again. But you always can actually do this whole, it's online, that you can participate. But there was some people that did really everything. So it was clear, if you do the whole summer camp, you get a certificate. And so that's when then each person gave a certificate. And if you look here, Environmental Performance Agency, if you ever look at the Environmental Protection Agency, that's exactly how the writing in that letter form, but as you see, they twist things around. So who came the boss here now? In this agency, urban moss is the chief. So how we can find different languages, playing in these urban landscapes, playing in the landscape, as also Cesar was saying, where things are taking away, but life, other life coming then. And what about if that is actually the call to take other action than just put a building up, right? And then this, so from that before, in May, my walking got a little longer. So I actually could go 15 minutes for a walk. And I encountered then this moss. The name became Partial Uphill Compact Black Lives Matter Sign Square Copper Moss. And I just shared a small conversation we both had. Fem, how could I dismiss you, Moss, for so long? Moss, how could you not learn to see me for so long? We always are here, but it takes a pandemic that you take time to return daily to us to say hello. Fem, you're absolutely right. Wondering, once I get the vaccine, will I run into the next airplane? Honestly, Moss, I walked by at you maybe for years and never saw you. Nor I had an interest to see you. I had no idea you even were around me. How could I miss your beauty of glow, your intimacy, your magic, your cleverness, your smartness? What a fool I am. Moss, I do enjoy you are bringing water drops. Unexpected pleasure, but as well unexpected labor. Months later. Fem, I feel a sense of grief. What should I do that took you away, crushed you and transported you into a landfill, and now instead of you is flat cement? Do you want I make a memory tattoo on the ground for you? And at that moment as well, and I put black, I met not only Mars, I met also new humans. And I met Emily Johnsons, and she's an American dancer, writer, and choreographer from the Yupik descent. She grew up in Sterling, Alaska, and is based in New York City. She creates the monthly Kinstellary mapping in light and dark gatherings at the Operance Art Center in Lower Manhattan. And she brought me actually to the East River Park, where she showed me her tree. And after that as well, I learned that this whole park will be flattened, destroyed, 50 acres. So I came back and asked myself, is there any mosses? So my walk took longer now, 45 minutes from home to meet moss. And so I went into the park and different places to meet moss. And then every time I'm meeting them, have a conversation, make these protocols with them, I also give a thank you gesture for that they took the time to have a conversation. And here is a thank you gesture that I gave back to the hidden curb moss. And then this, and I was listening what it asked this park, what these mosses want from it. And it was very clear when it came the fall equinox that we need to make a public gathering on behalf of moss, that we all were together. And as well, what is this park more and what it means to take care. So the first multi-species commoning public gathering then happens on September 22. And I will just read to you and go with the slides, my thank you note afterwards on Instagram. Oh, wait. Tremendous gratitude to Emily for her opening land acknowledgement. Her voice brought us all closer to the land. Mo's dance gesture brought us into other landscapes, other languages. It was wonderful to be with you all in Ma's time. Slow, but then also fast. We practiced hydrating Ma's, watching them to speak in their language, sharing orally through storytelling our time with them. A collective symphony in social distance as the atmosphere and earth kept us together. We sat on the hill as the sunset approached, listening to Ma's friends in their neighborhoods. By Nora, Todd, Simone, and Ellie and myself, our story were hearing in the air. Our delicate discussion with Mo's and one another, we questioned what if they would have personhood in their own terms? How would the saving of East River Park look like from demolition if they had personhood? Neighborhood voice shared as well their insight of the fight to save the park. The park is still here. We are still here. Let the park speak. Let the community speak. Let moss speak. Let the trees speak. Let the squirrel speak. Let the water speak. And thanks for Julie for your beautiful pictures. And as a further go into it, and also sharing with Emily a lot about the park, and on the December, we did another multi-species commoning and dance walk on the winter solstice. And I share again what I wrote the day after. Woke up this morning being right inside the East River Park trees, down to moss homes, inside the tree roots and bark valleys and caves, as we moved in a circle vortex through the north half of the park with beings joining in. Emily, this is Emily Johnson. Emily made a medicine for the trees to share amongst themselves for resilience, endurance, protection. And I made a wreath to feed and nourish beings on our entangled futures. Feeling deep in my hand bones, our last action in the dance walk. Emily and I kneeled down to the ground. Our hands were getting smeared with the moist of soil as we were creating two small holes into the lawn, connecting the holes with a tunnel of air passing through for creating a micro hole fire. Thanks to everyone who gave us written message of care, protection, and love as we let the fire take them into transformational dimensions. We left the park. Passing the first sidewalk tree outside the park, my body cells send alert messages that the trees outside the park are deeply entangled with the trees and their beings inside the park. These beings know how to live through storm. They offer their own protection and nourishment to multitudes. Emily so beautiful says, who are no less free for not knowing the woods. With that, I like to add, urban mosses are no less moss for knowing not the big stone. Our New York City urban forest is real. I will return to fight with and for the East River Park community for a flawed plan that is environmental racism. No colonized destructive plans to bury alive 53 acres of parkland in a neighborhood where it's already always in disadvantage in the Lower East Side with the NYCHA projects, with a highway that goes in between. The beings guide me what action to take. Hello and thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. That was lovely to be able to hear, see, experience in a way too, that you led us on. I just wanted to quickly just ask both of you a question interrelated to your talks before we start in our breakouts, because I want to make sure folks have time to talk to you. but it really feels like both of your works, Cesar and Andrea, that you talk, you're really engaging with this idea of grieving almost, right? Kind of a collective grieving, but then also giving us possibility, right? But like thinking about this moment in which we have displacement, demolition, this illness that is happening, but then you're calling for care, right? And it's and possibility. And so I'm asking you, you know, for this call to action that it seems like your works bring, and I'm wondering what does revitalization look like for you? Like, what is the possibility that can be? Because with Andrea, you were saying, you know, in commenting on Cesar's work, right, that there seems to be this call, and who are the communities? Who are the things that are able to come into these spaces?
Yeah, can I go?
Yeah, sure.
To be honest, that is still something that I'm trying to figure out myself. But in pertaining to Newark, there are a lot of grassroots organizations and people who are coming together. And, you know, there's a lot of, there are people who are committed to mutual aid. You know, there are people who are doing things, but sometimes I'm kind of cynical because it's like still like the local government is still running things, and people have used the law to like, okay, let's have 20% affordable apartments for every new construction, right? So beyond that, like it's just still something I'm trying to figure out myself too, you know.
Well, and I mean, I'm really thinking like, I mean, it's time that what we dream is actually real every time we do something. And I learned that with the multi-species coming and gathering again. It's really, if I want to see a revitalization, I want to see that more communities can be part of things. And I'm talking communities actually human and non-human. I'm not splitting them. Therefore, I need to know more about it. And therefore, there need to be, even when you create something, you need to create something that allows that change, that allows that we can see different language. As that's, I feel like as an artist, as a responsibility, we have to bring to audience and people to different languages that actually they even feel like they have power for their thinking. Like with, and then really see as well who gets left out and help them, be an ally on it, right? Like with the East River Park, you could see the community had a fantastic plan. They really had like that the greenery would continue from the park going into the nature. The city in the last minute changed the whole plan and just wants to flatten everything, landfill, and then build the park up. Yes, there needs to be flood protection, but you can work with what is there and not just destroying. And anyway, the new plan looks the same thing then when you look 83 years old. It's still the highway in between that separates the neighbors actually really have an easy time to go into the park. So, but how you can actually sensitize people more, we have already the non-human beings in everywhere, right? How they can be sensitized that they can feel them, and then advocate for the people, for their well-being, right? And for the plant's well-being. Like they go together, we are entangled, but we forgot, our religion learned to say human and nature, at least in my religion and the Catholic religion, that's what they do, right? The man is above nature, right? I have to decolonize myself even as an artist over time. So I myself in myself can heal, can grieve, and find new systems. And I think everybody of us has to do that in their term. And then we will create new policies. In the end, it is definitely new policies. We have to have new policies in the end. But that will take time. But we have to work now.
Yeah, with Cesar, I see that similarly in your work, in which like who isn't heard, who is the voiceless, right? And that image, right, with the sign, when you were explaining that, it's just like, oh my God, that, you know, your life completely is turned upside down with this, like, that, you know, someone can actually do that, the city can actually do that. Yeah, but I'm wondering about, interrelated to this, like, you know, your process of being able to know about these images that you captured. Are you like, are people telling you like, you've got to come down and see this, or are you traveling through and noticing, like Andrea, like you notice that area that people haven't like taken over yet, and yet, you know, still the plants are getting pulled out. But are you constantly like walking around, or are these, you know, things that you're inundated every day, walking back and forth to your everyday life? Or
Like Andrea, I'm an obsessive walker. Like that's like my therapy. So I'm constantly walking around. Just yesterday, I was going to go get some tacos, and I came across another house on the corner with the same sign. So it's like right now we're like in this very rapid change. And I see homeowners are selling their houses. The sign comes up, the building gets knocked down, and there are so many empty lots right now, and it's just crazy. But yeah, my process is completely organic. Like I don't necessarily, it all comes naturally.
you know, I'm having people wanting to ask you questions, and so I'm wondering if maybe we should go into breakout. So I'm going to end the Facebook streaming now. Hold on one second. It's just so